hey everybody, welcome to the 9th episode, I think, of Castle Rock Talk. I'm your wannabe host, Sean Hakes, and get ready to explore Castle Rock. Today we have an exciting program. Again, Jim McGannon, Consulting Arborist and former Colorado Springs forester, will be joining us to talk all things landscaping and to answer your questions live as you have them. But before we get to Jim, we have a few special announcements. So there's a couple things going on today. First, Meadows Car Care or Car Wash is offering 100% of the proceeds raised today for washing your car to Steve Evans' daughter, Ellie. So we encourage you to drop by there, get your car washed. And then after, also today at 6:30, is the Celebration of Life procession that will begin starting at the Douglas County Fairgrounds parking lot. So be prompt. If you can't make it, don't worry. We'll be streaming it live in front of Crowfoot Coffee as well. And then following the procession as it runs through the meadows, the Dads of Castle Rock group will also be live streaming the end of that. Finally, we thought we'd end the night with a bang as a sign of support for everything Steve has done for Castle Rock, as well as to show Ellie that we've got her back. So at 8 o'clock p.m., wherever you're at, stop what you're doing, go outside, and howl at the top of your lungs to show your appreciation and support for Steve, his daughter, as well as those in the front lines battling this disgusting virus. Let's show Colorado how Castle Rock is both Steve and Castle Rock strong. Now we're going to go to Mr. Jim McGannon from Colorado Tree Arborist. Jim, are you there?
Hello, Mr. Hakes and everyone else.
Hey, thanks for joining us. So tell us a little bit about you. You were the former forester for Colorado Springs, and you're a consulting arborist. What's an arborist?
Well, I'll tell you quickly, I spent most of my career as a city forester in Colorado Springs for the city of Colorado Springs. And that was part of Parks and Recreation Department, as well as for the whole city in general. So anyway, as far as my career as a traditional forester, I work with landowners, as well as being an urban forester itself. With that, I went from about 2008, I finished my career with the city, and I've been concentrating more fully on consulting and with landowners, as well as, for example, as a consulting arborist, I would come out to your home and check out issues that you may be having with your trees, your landscape in general. I've served as an expert witness to defend certain landscape commercial sites and so forth. And I do a lot of different writing and reports and so forth, and try to help people out commercially, residentially, as a consultant. And I've secured, for example, some work up in the Denver Mountain Parks for the next 2 to 3 years as a forester, drafting management plans. So those are some examples of things I do.
So you're essentially a guru of plants and trees, right? And the surroundings and growing environments and whatnot. Is that right?
Well, guru, that's a good one, Sean. Yeah, I'll be a guru of everything from the grass to the 150-foot trees, yes.
All right.
I love them all. I work with them all. Perennials, you name it. Xeriscape, do it all.
So I have a couple questions for you. We're also going to be taking questions from the audience. We're streaming live not only on YouTube, but across multiple Facebook pages. We have Castle Rock Talk, Castle Rock Food and Drink, CRCO Shop Local, CRCO, and a bunch of other ones. So if you have a question for Jim, please go ahead and post it. I'm monitoring the Castle Rock Talk group right now, as well as all of the Facebook pages. But Jim, so in our climate, you're familiar with Castle Rock, obviously. What are some of the best trees you can get that have the best chance of survival here and that are meant for the geography?
Well, of course, that has everything to do when you pick a tree out. It has everything to do with what the site is. So you pick the tree based upon the site. And all too often in our neighborhoods, you'll see pretty much willy-nilly trees put in wherever of different kinds. And when I go out to a lot of homes and look, I will recommend that people take certain trees out and replace them with what probably should have been put in. For example, let's say somebody puts a cottonwood in their front yard and they don't have that big a yard. Well, they're going to regret that someday because that tree is way too big. So let's say I might recommend something that's more drought tolerant, insect and disease free. One tree I really love, the smaller growing tree, is the Toba hawthorn. Another one very similar to that is the amber maple, AMUR maple. So that's an example of what I do when I help people out with placement of their trees. One last thing I might offer is, let's say you live along a trail that's coming by your home. Maybe you want to put in a screen of some vegetation with shrubs and or smaller trees. I would explain to you in that situation what's the best trees and or shrubs to combine and that are more possibly xeric or don't require as much water, so you don't have to worry about watering so much. So those all those elements we put together for proper placement and maintenance of your trees, so that you don't have to be concerned about whether you're wasting water or putting the right tree or the wrong tree in. There's lots of things to consider. It's a big investment. You want to make sure you do it properly and plan for it first.
Cool. So just a reminder, hanging out with Jim McGannon, Consulting Arborist, retired City of Colorado Springs Forester. Jim, we have our first community question. That is from Heidi. She says, should I be watering my bushes now, especially ones that aren't doing well? Should I trim the branches that break easily?
Well, I'll tell you what, when I get questions like that over the phone, for example, or right now over Skype, I have to answer kind of generically without seeing the situation. But we've had some pretty good moisture this winter, which has been a big blessing for us. When we start to warm up now and we don't see moisture for quite a while, then we can start watering our plants. But I wouldn't be too concerned quite yet. For the shrubs are pretty hardy, usually are pretty hardy. And should you prune them back? Well, that depends. Are they growing over the sidewalk? If not, let them grow. Again, what kind of shrub is it? So I'd need to, when I talk to folks, I like to take a look at the landscape so I can give them a more professional, better, well-rounded answer. But in general, we're doing pretty well with our moisture right now.
So several years ago, Jim, you came out to a former house of mine, and I don't know if you remember this or not, but we had a big tree in our front yard that got a little bit of snow on it, and the entire tree tipped over. And that was a tree that has been there for 4 or 5 years. So what causes the trees to just fall over?
Well, the first thing I can think of is...
Is it a soil issue, or wasn't planted right, possibly?
It probably wasn't planted correctly if it fell over that easily. And that's probably the first thing that comes to mind. But that goes all the way back again to proper planning and proper planting and maintenance and care. So it could have been put in the ground with something like the root ball might not have been well enough established, and those are the kind of factors that you have to take into consideration. So the snow, by the way, we had some heavy snow here this spring, and it broke a lot of branches on these trees, knocked trees over, and that's one of the things that sometimes you just can't avoid it. But that's what first comes to my mind when you tell me that.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's good. Heidi also says, thank you, Jim. So that's nice. And by the way, if you want to check out what Jim does, he came over to my house, I don't know, it's probably 3-4 months ago, to look at my, what trees do I have in the backyard?
Let's see. You had some
spruces.
You had some junipers and some pine trees. I looked at the pines and I scolded you for what you were doing with them.
He did. I was worried about our pine trees, and And he actually snuck over there when I wasn't there one day and said, "Hey, you need to buckle up and do this, and that to make sure those puppies survive."
What I did, Sean, was they were wired up with wrap and the wrong kind of. They were starting to girdle the tree, the stem, and I took them off. And a lot of landscapers will do that. They'll wire up and strap up the trees and put posts on them, and then the next thing you know, they're girdling the trunks and they're causing damage. So it's those are the kind of things you have to watch out for.
So another question, real quick for you. That's a great point. So for new houses or anyone doing new landscaping, how long should they leave that on, for any of the new trees?
Generally speaking, stakes and straps and wires and so forth, after about the second season, you want to take that stuff off because you don't want it to rub on the branches and cause any girdling effect. So after about 2 years, those plants should start to become established enough where you get all that hardware off of the trees.
Heidi has another question too. She has a tree in the backyard that has a large amount of pine needles below. Is it good practice to remove those pine needles, to pick them up and put them in a bag and recycle them or whatever? What would you do?
Let's assume those are ponderosa pine, for example, that are big enough where they're going to drop enough needles that you need to be concerned about. If you have grass under there that you don't want the needles to be on because that acidity in the needles will affect the grass, then rake it off. But in general, if they're in an area where you're not worried about whether the grass is going to grow or not, just leave them lay. I have a perfect example of that on my property where I have very large Austrian pines, and I rake the needles off the grass and I let them. I just leave the needles underneath the crowns of the trees. That's kind of a mulched area, and it's just fine. It's great.
So what about me where I have rocks? First of all, I think I'm supposed to have mulch anyways, but I have rocks around them. And so 2 points. One, should I leave them? Two, should I hire someone to remove those rocks and push them back and put mulch in there? Is that something I could do, or what do you recommend?
Okay, in certain situations, there's cobble, the larger rock, which are nice to have. That's a good situation with maybe fabric underneath the rocks around on top of your shrubs and trees. That's fine. But most often I see smaller rocks that people use for mulch, and that creates a very dry heat island effect around that root system that can dry the roots out, and it's not good for the tree. So in this business, we recommend coming back from about the trunk from about 2 feet out and making a tree well around the tree, taking out all the grass and rocks and actually putting wood chip. It retains the moisture and keeps the soil cooler and promotes good, healthy tree root growth.
Good to know. And finally, my last question for you, and also if anyone in the audience is watching and you have any more questions for Jim, Consulting Arborist, retired City of Colorado Springs Forester, go ahead and ask it. We'll try to get to it when we can, and still ask it, and if we're offline, we'll get those answers for you as well. So as far as sprinklers go, we talked to our weather expert, John Braddock from Mountain Wave Weather, the other day. He said it's still a little bit too early, and it kind of goes along with what you said. This season has had some good moisture to it, so don't get too excited to start the sprinklers up and stuff like that. But we do have, from what I understand, a deep freeze coming up where it's going to get down to almost nothing here pretty soon. But what's kind of your general rule of thumb of when to fire those sprinkler systems up for the year?
Well, given my experiences with my own property and others, we may have a deep freeze coming, but it's probably nothing that's going to affect the sprinkler system. However, I'm not going to fire mine up for another couple weeks to make sure that we're out of that freeze period. Again, largely because we've got some really good moisture in our lawns right now, all around the region from the excellent snows we've had. Keep this in mind too. The way our weather pattern's been the last couple of years, we're probably going to see some major snowstorms coming in yet through May. And am I the weatherman? No, but that's what I'm expecting. And when that moisture comes, it's probably going to be very wet, heavy snow. Again, where it might break those branches where the leaves are coming out. And by the way, I might add to that, Sean, by saying when we see these snows coming in and it's landing on those branches of our trees, even if it's at 11 o'clock at night, you need to get out there with a wide push broom and gently push those branches so that the snow comes off of those branches and it doesn't break them.
Very cool. Well, Jim, appreciate your time. ColoradoTreeArborist.com if you need to reach out to Jim with any of your questions. You can also post them to any of our feeds comments, and we'll be sure to get those over to him as well. And then, Jim, one last thing. I heard you might be running for something coming up. Is that true?
Yes, Sean, I'm running for my life.
That's good.
So with that, I'm also running for the to be put on the primary ballot June 30th for U.S. Congress in District 4. So that's been a big effort so far, and I look forward to that race.
All right. Well, maybe someday down the road, if this comes to fruition for you, maybe we'll have you on and to do a live town hall, for all the those watching here, so they can pick your brain on some of the specific things that might matter to them and how you would handle them.
And in this Colorado district, District 4, Castle Rock, Parker, and all this region, oh, that would be fun. That would be great.
All right, cool. Well, appreciate you joining us, Jim. You can sign off now, and I'm sure we'll be in touch soon.
Okay, take care, everybody. Happy spring, and it's almost Arbor Day and Earth Day coming up, so be tuned into that. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Catch you later. That was Jim McGannon, and he is a consulting arborist and retired City of Colorado Springs forester. Now to a couple housekeeping items. I just want to remind you again tonight, so we have a couple different things going on. Tonight at 8 o'clock, if you can, walk outside. Let me see if I can get the graphic up here. Here we go. We are going to do 8 o'clock. You've heard the howls already in support of our first line of defense members, such as firefighters, healthcare workers, things like that. 8 o'clock, if we could get the entire town of Castle Rock out here to howl in support of Steve Evans and what he's done for the community and show support for his daughter as well, that would be awesome, especially if it was so loud that they could hear it all the way towards Colorado Springs and towards Denver, at least Castle Pines. And I think there's enough of you watching that we could accomplish this. So if you could do me a favor, share the event. If you go to facebook.com/Colorado Castle Rock, you'll be able to find the event. And if you could share that as well. And then the procession, again, is at 6:30. It meets at the Douglas County Fairgrounds. Please make sure that you stay in your car. And one other thing is, pretty soon, we're going to be doing a host your own show, which should be a lot of fun. There we go. There's the right graphic. If you're interested in hosting a show on CRCO, we have about 10 or so different Facebook pages and group that it broadcasts to. Let us know, Sean at castlerockco.com. We're going to be looking for specific content. So whether you're an attorney, you want to do a legal show, you're a home improvement contractor and want to do a home show, a real estate agent, want to do a real estate show, maybe a financial planner, you want to do a financial show, things like that that really support the efforts of our community. So I appreciate you guys joining us on another episode of Castle Rock Talk. I'm your host, Sean Hakes, and now we're going to go to Brandon with Cooking with Coast to Coast. Thanks for joining.
The state of Washington is known for some fantastic seafood, but for me, there's nothing better that comes out of the state of Washington than fresh oysters. Oysters by themselves are fantastic. They're briny and they're fresh. They taste like the ocean. But we're going to accentuate these with a couple sauces that are just going to help elevate these to another level. We're going to want some fresh sliced lemon. First up, cocktail sauce. About a quarter cup of ketchup, 1 tablespoon of horseradish. Perfect. Now we're gonna make our 2 mignonettes. One is a simple mignonette and the other one a spicy. So first, the simple. 1/8 of a cup red wine vinegar, 1/8 of a cup rice wine vinegar, tablespoon of our shallots, pinch of salt, and fresh cracked pepper. Give that a mix. For our spicy mignonette, 1/4 cup cider vinegar, another good tablespoon of our shallots, tablespoon of brown sugar, and a 1/2 teaspoon of chili flakes. Give that one a stir. Now it's time to shuck the oysters. Just get the point of the shucking knife right under the lip, start wiggling it back and forth. As the shell starts to open, wiggle that blade down the side. This will slice the abductor muscle, freeing the oyster from the shell. Once you've got the top shell off, run your knife along the bottom of the oyster, cutting it free from the bottom, and flip it over. All right, let's eat some oysters. Down the hatch. Well, those were actually fantastic. It is fun with a variety of sauces and mignonettes and Tabasco and lemon, different things that you can kind of mix and match and play with. So I really hope that you guys like what I did today. If you feel that I represented Washington well, give me a like, share with your friends, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next time. Yeah, man.